Clara had always believed that a little time away could heal just about anything, so when she stepped off the plane after a dream vacation across Japan, Thailand, and Hawaii, she felt lighter, freer, and ready to dive back into life with her two kids. But within days of returning home, something began to feel off. A deep ache in her leg, a strange sensation under her skin. At first, Clara chalked it up to jet lag or too much walking, but what was hiding beneath the surface of her skin wasn't stress or fatigue. It was alive, and it was moving. Clara was a single mother of two, Sue, 9, and Howard, 6. Her life revolved around them. School drop-offs, piano lessons, late-night macaroni dinners, and story time. She hadn't taken a real vacation in years, so when her sister offered to watch the kids so Clara could take that long postponed trip abroad, she finally said yes. Japan was serene. Thailand was breathtaking. Hawaii felt like a living postcard. Clara explored temples in Kyoto, wandered through Bangkok's markets, and sipped coconut water under the Hawaiian sun. But once back in New England, something didn't feel right. 4 days after landing, her right leg began to throb. At first, she blamed the long-haul flights and countless hours of walking. She tried hot baths, massage, even painkillers. Nothing helped. Then came the bump, just below her knee, small, red, and raised like a bug bite. It was warm to the touch and strangely tender. The skin around it began to flush, tight and inflamed. Clara stood in front of the bathroom mirror one morning, gently pressing around it. Something inside moved. Her stomach flipped. That couldn't be real. She stared harder. Did she imagine it? For 2 more days, she tried to convince herself it was nothing. But by the end of the week, the bump had doubled in size. The pain was radiating. Her leg throbbed constantly. Her fever climbed past 102, and the movement beneath the skin grew more intense. By the time Clara limped into the emergency room, she was shaking from the fever and nearly in tears. She had told Sue and Howard she'd be back before dinner. She had no idea that dinner would turn into a week-long hospital stay, and the beginning of the most horrifying chapter of her life. The ER doctors were polite but skeptical. Probably a bite, one said. Might be a localized infection. They ran blood work, did scans, and noted elevated white cell counts. But nothing conclusive. Clara was admitted overnight for observation. She barely slept. Around 4 a.m., she woke in a cold sweat and pulled back her hospital blanket. The bump on her leg had burst slightly at the top, and something was sticking out of it. It twitched. She screamed. Nurses rushed in. One recoiled instantly. The other called for the attending doctor. Within minutes, a small surgical team was in the room, prepping Clara's leg and shining bright lights on the wound. What they extracted stunned everyone in the room. It was a larva, a squirming, pale, worm-like creature. One of the nurses dropped her tray. Another whispered, "Jesus." The lead doctor gently placed the creature into a specimen jar and sent it to the lab. Clara, still groggy from the fever, stared at the jar in disbelief. She hadn't imagined it. There really had been something alive inside her. Later that afternoon, results came back. The larva was from a Dermatobia hominis, more commonly known as the human botfly. Clara blinked in confusion. "A what?" she asked. The doctor explained that botflies are parasitic insects that deposit larvae under the skin of mammals. The larvae hatch, feed, and develop under the skin before emerging to pupate. Usually they're found in Central and South America, not in Japan, not in Thailand, and definitely not Hawaii. Something didn't add up. The medical team began reviewing Clara's travel history and flagged the anomaly. A human botfly infection with no visit to a botfly endemic region? That was a red flag. The hospital contacted the CDC and the local authorities. That's when things went from bizarre to criminal. 2 detectives visited Clara's hospital room later that evening. They were polite, but their questions were anything but casual. "Who did you travel with? Where did you stay? Did anyone have access to your belongings?" Clara, exhausted and still reeling, tried to recall every detail. Most of the trip had been uneventful, until Thailand. She had met a man there. His name was Daniel. Mid-30s, friendly, talkative, maybe too talkative. He struck up a conversation in a market, then kept reappearing at her hotel, at the same restaurants, on the same day trips. Clara had found it odd, but she was polite. Maybe too polite. She let him join her for lunch one day. That night, she woke up with a strange itch on her leg, but chalked it up to a mosquito bite. Now, that moment burned in her memory. She told the detectives everything. One of them made a call immediately. Within days, investigators discovered surveillance footage of Daniel following multiple tourists in Bangkok, mostly solo travelers. Worse yet, Clara wasn't the only one. Several other tourists had returned to their home countries and reported similar botfly infections. One man in Berlin, a college student in Toronto, a woman in Cape Town. The infections all trace back to Daniel. He wasn't just a creep in a market, he was part of a smuggling ring, trafficking rare biological specimens across borders using the most unsuspecting transport method imaginable: humans. Back in New England, Clara's nightmare was far from over. Though the larva had been removed, the wound had become infected. She underwent minor surgery to clear out surrounding tissue and spent several weeks in physical therapy. But the emotional damage ran deeper. She had trouble sleeping. Paranoia crept in during quiet moments. She kept checking her body for new bumps. She jolted awake at the slightest movement under the sheets. Sue and Howard noticed. They clung to her more, asked more questions. She told them the truth, or a softened version of it. A bad bug got into Mommy's leg, but it's gone now. They were scared but brave, just like her. Clara began seeing a trauma counselor. Slowly, the images became less vivid. The fear began to lose its grip, and when a local journalist reached out asking to share her story, she hesitated, but then agreed. Her story spread like wildfire, not because it was shocking, though it was, but because it warned people, travelers, women, parents. The segment triggered further investigations into the smuggling ring. More arrests followed. The black market lab that commissioned the larva runs was shut down after a raid in South America. Clara didn't stop there. She began working with travel safety nonprofits, gave talks about being aware abroad, taught others how to spot the signs of infection, and, more than anything, encouraged travelers to listen to their instincts. "If something feels wrong," she said during one interview, "it probably is." Clara's case became a subject of medical journals and forensic reports. Doctors and researchers used it to revise how they screen for parasitic infections in returning travelers. New protocols were developed for identifying unusual infestations early, especially in patients with conflicting travel histories. Her case even made its way into medical school lectures and international travel advisories. For Clara, the notoriety never mattered. What mattered was healing and protecting her children. By the one-year anniversary of her return home, she'd regained full use of her leg. The scar, though faint, was permanent, a reminder of what she'd survived. Sue made her a bracelet with beads that spelled warrior. Howard drew a picture of their family. He gave Clara a cape. She didn't feel like a superhero, but she was something else now. A survivor, a mother who wouldn't be broken, and a woman who turned horror into purpose. And she had a message for anyone watching. Travel the world, experience life, but never assume that evil wears a warning label. Stay aware, stay curious, and never ever ignore your gut. Clara's story is more than a headline. It's a cautionary tale wrapped in courage, a reminder that even in moments of unimaginable violation, we are not powerless. She didn't just survive, she changed the world for the better. And somewhere tonight, another traveler might avoid becoming a victim because of what Clara endured and what she chose to share. If this story moved you, the next one on your screen will leave you speechless. Subscribe, hit that bell, and don't miss what's coming next. Until then, travel smart, stay safe, and never underestimate the human spirit.